Hey everyone, how's it going? So I just wanted to let you know that if you're looking for information on my channel, you're gonna find a lot of stuff on there, but there's a lot of stuff that I can't put on YouTube. This is not one of them, hopefully. Well, it's not, but um, if you were interested in seeing all the information that didn't make it to YouTube, it's in my book series called Into the Rabbit Hole series by Micah Dank. There's 8 books in it so far. There's going to be a ninth. And it breaks down all the things that we've been lied to about. So right now, what I wanted to do is do a video uh, for you guys. If you're watching this at this point, I'm assuming that you either already kind of know this or you're not scared of the kind of stuff I'm going to talk about, like Revelation, hell, Lucifer, Satan, Baphomet. The point of this video is so that you can share this with people who are not woken up to this kind of stuff, who may still have fear in these things and think that they're real and legitimate. So let's just start with the 12 signs that I usually do. So the first sign that I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man. I'm not going to go into the complete breakdown of the story of Aquarius. I'm just going to give you basically the key words that represent each sign, and then we're going to use those words to decode. So keywords for Aquarius: son of man or man, because this is a sign of the man; baptism, because this is how you baptize someone; water pitcher, because there's a water pitcher here; fountain, because many of the Greek fountains and other sort of fountains were built like this; stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea, water bodies. Now Aquarius is an air sign, but because there's water in the picture, in the story of Aquarius, they encode water words to mean Aquarius, whereas Pisces is the mutable sign, the two fish in the water. Pisces is actually a water sign. So whether they're talking about Aquarius or Pisces really depends on the patterns that you're going to make in the sky, and we'll get into that. Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, a 12-hour night. There's 3 different kinds of Passover that take place. The first Passover is the ancient one, where the sun passes over the um, equinox, well, passes over the equator on March 21st and begins its descent back to its glory. See, the glory of the sun is the summer solstice, which is in Cancer, the first day of Cancer. And then you got a month there, basically. And then the next sign is Leo. And Leo, the sun actually rules Leo. The sun only rules Leo. So that's the glory of the kingdom. That's when Jesus is out doing flipping tables and doing all this kind of stuff, teaching everybody. That's the glory of the sun. The second Passover is the Jewish Passover, which is when the angel of death passes over all the Jewish houses and all the houses actually in Egypt. Anyone that doesn't have the lamb, which is a baby ram, Aries the ram's blood, smeared on their doorposts, the firstborn sons get killed. It's the story of the death of the firstborn son. It's just a mini story within a macro story of the death of the son. Now, there's a Christian Passover too. It's called the resurrection of God's son, which takes place during Easter. All this stuff happens in Aries. So, ram, lamb, shepherd, ram's horn. That's talking about Aries. Taurus is the bull. When you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, you're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. Just as the sun rises a degree on its axis starting on December 25th, every single day, an additional degree, it stops rising a degree on June 21st, the first day of Cancer. That's the summer solstice. Then for 3 days, it stays at that exact same height, hence moving sideways. Then on June 25th, it lowers a degree, and then therefore continuously lowering a degree every consecutive day. The crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab. So whenever you're talking about crab or beetle, you're talking about Cancer. Now, Leo is the lion. He's the king. He's the king of the jungle or the savannah, the desert, whatever you want to call it. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you're talking about lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. Remember before when you said that you plant in Taurus? Well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn, these are all grainy things. Things that are harvested during Virgo, they're talking about Virgo. Example, the barley. So when they talk about the beer comes from the barley is harvested in Virgo. When they're talking about the bread comes from the wheat that's harvested in Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. Libra is the justice, it's the scale, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. See, when it passes the spring equinox, or when it passes the equator in spring in Aries, it's being heralded because it's going back up to its height. Summer's coming, things are growing, everything's good. Here, it's being sentenced to winter, which we're going to get into. Libra's also wine season, which is when you plant for the grapes in Taurus, you could press the wine here. So law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, wine, vineyard, wine press, even grapes, olive oil or olive oil, that's all Libra. Scorpio is the scorpion and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. And not so much when it bites you, but when it stings you, I've been told. Not when it bites you. When it stings you, it leaves an imprint that looks like a pair of lips. And it's why the mafia has the kiss of death. And it's why Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. So the sun is judged in Libra and it's betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, in Sagittarius, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun, killing the sun. Because the last day of Sagittarius, is December 21st. The sun is at its lowest point. It cannot rise any lower. It's dead. The sun is dead, and then it remains dead for 3 days. So God's sun remains dead for 3 days. When on December 25th, or the birth of God's sun, it rises another degree and starts to make its way back to the top. And it does this cycle every single year. Starting December 25th, goes up a degree. 26th, another degree. 27th, another degree. Stops June 21st, walks sideways for 3 days, drops a degree June 25th, drops another degree June 26th, continues, stops December 21st, walks sideways for 3 days, comes back to life December 25th. It does this pattern every single year. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. And then finally you have the goat, which is Capricorn. So whenever you hear kid or goat, they're talking about Capricorn. Why? Because if you look at the zodiac wheel on the right, Capricorn is all the way at the bottom. Now, if you start the sun at the bottom and you walk it to the left a degree a day alongside the wheel, getting to its height in Cancer, it starts the great climb up the mountain in Capricorn, just like the goats climb the mountain. So those are the 12 signs. Those are the truncated story versions of them. And we're going to start with Revelation. I'm going to show you how it is not anything to fear. So John's vision of Christ. I turned around to see the voice that was speaking to me. And when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like a son of man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet, and with a golden sash around his chest. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like a blazing fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in the furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and coming out of his mouth was a sharp double-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in its brilliance. So, among the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man. This references Aquarius, the Son of Man, the sign of the man, with a golden sash around his chest. So the sun is in Aquarius. The golden sash is a metaphor. Hair on his head was white like wool, which comes from sheep or a ram, referencing Aries. His eyes were like a blazing fire. So now this blazing sun is in Aries. His voice was like the sound of rushing waters. This is referencing Aquarius, the sign of the waters. In his right hand, he held 7 stars. This is literally talking about the Pleiades. They're known as the 7 sisters. And they're mentioned in the book of Job 38:32, where he says, can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? That was it. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion, the second was like an ox, the third had a face like a man, the fourth was like a flying eagle. It is so important to understand that there are people who literally believe this four-headed creature, it's actually known as the tetramorph, is going to be in the heavens. They literally believe in this. This is going to come during the end of days. So the first living creature was like a lion, that's Leo. The second was like an ox, that's Taurus. The third had a face like a man, that's Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Now, in astrology, the scorpion is the belly crawling creature, the lowest form of life on earth. It crawls on its belly. What is the first thing that God does to the serpent after the deception in the Garden of Eden? He takes away his legs. He makes him crawl on his belly. It's a punishment. However, its evolved form is the eagle. The scorpion evolves into the eagle. It's known as the ascendant. And the eagle is the highest flying form of life on earth. The eagle evolves one more time into the phoenix. What is the story of the phoenix? It's the same story we're always talking about. It's a story of a flaming ball, like the sun, that dies, metaphorically, and is reborn from its ashes. So the eagle becomes Scorpio. So you have Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. They're the four fixed signs of the zodiac. So let's read this one more time. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. So why are they fixed signs? Well, they're called fixed signs because they're fixed in the season. So you have 12 zodiac signs. You have 3 signs in each season. Makes 4 seasons. So 4 times the 3 signs equals the 12 signs. Makes sense? So there's 3 signs in each season. The first sign in the season is known as the cardinal sign. That's why there's cardinals in church. Each one of those cardinal signs, well, not just the cardinal signs, but each one of the signs can be broken down into 3 10-day segments called deacons, which is why there's deacons and cardinals in the hierarchy of the church. The first sign is the cardinal sign. The second sign is the fixed sign because it's in the dead middle of the season. So Leo's in the middle of summer, Taurus spring, Aquarius winter, and Scorpio, or the eagle, in the fall. And the third sign is the mutable sign that takes you out of it. So we just read that again. So people think that there's going to be a 4-headed creature in the sky, or is it literally just making this pattern? I don't know if you could see the red, but if you literally watch this, Taurus and Scorpio are opposing signs. Aquarius and Leo are opposing signs. This makes a cross or an X, depending on how you twist it, directly through the zodiac. So that's what this passage is talking about. There's nothing to fear. There is no great grandeur animal hybrid chimera going to be in the sky. Revelation 5:5. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and the 7 seals. Well, the Lion of Judah is Jesus. He has names. He's known as the Lion of Judah when the sun is in Leo. When the sun is in Aquarius, he's known as the Son of Man. When the sun is in Pisces, the 2 fish, he's known as the fisherman of men, and it's why he feeds the masses with 2 fish. When the sun is in Aries, he's known as the Lamb of God or the Good Shepherd. When the sun is in Cancer, St. Augustine called him the Good Beetle. Remember the scarab? And in Leo, he's known as the Lion of Judah. Now in Virgo, he's known as the Bread of Life, and he's born of a virgin. In Libra, he's known as the Just One. So Revelation 6:1. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, come. We went over the 4 living creatures just before in Revelation 4:7. But here's the thing. Why does the Lamb open the first of the seals? Are they talking about Jesus opening the seals? Well, they're talking about Aries. And the reason Aries opens the first seal is because Aries is the beginning of the year. So we have this dumb thing in our society where we think that the beginning of the year is January 1st, in the middle of the winter. That is not the beginning of a year. The beginning of the year is it's in the winter because Sirius is at its apex, its height, our binary star. Sirius is at its apex. That's why they did that. But the beginning of the year, if you trace it back, always goes back to Aries. It's the beginning of the agricultural year, because this book is basically, the Bible is basically a farmer's almanac, astrotheologically speaking. And when you go even further into that, And you go even deeper, the year actually back in the day wasn't started in Aries. It was actually started in Virgo. So basically, the sun ends in Leo, and then a brand new sun, a baby sun, is born again to a virgin in Virgo. So the lamb, at the time that this was written, was the first sign. So that's why the land opens the first seal. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow. This is Revelation 6:2. Well, what rider holds a bow but Sagittarius? Incidentally, remember how I told you that Sagittarius was the man with the bow and the arrow? Sagittarius is the death, because December 21st, the last day of Sagittarius, is the death, because the sun dies on that day. It's the winter solstice. Well, follow me on this. There's 4 gospels. Jesus dies 4 times. The death would be Sagittarius. That's when the death is metaphorically in the zodiac wheel, whereas December 25th is the birth. You could also make an argument that Aries is the birth, but December 25th is actually the birth. That's when the sun comes back. This is the story. This is the science behind the stories. That's what I'm trying to share. So there's 4 deaths in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the man on the horse, which is why there's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. There's 1 for each gospel. Revelation 6:6. Then I heard what sounded like a voice from the 4 living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine. Well, the wheat we know is Virgo, and we know that the barley is Virgo as well, the bread and the beer. And do not damage the oil and the wine. Well, I told you that the oil, the olives, are crushed in Libra, and the wine, well, that's also Libra too. Now, Virgo and Libra are connecting signs. So there's 2 examples of each, and they make a pattern in the sky. I watched as he opened the 6th seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to earth, as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken from a strong wind. So the sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The moon turned blood red, figs dropped from a fig tree. The goat is Capricorn, and it is black because Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn, which is known as the black planet or the black cube. The Jews wear a black cube on their forehead, known as the tefillin. The Muslims worship around the Kaaba, which is a giant black cube. This is because there's a weather pattern on the top of Saturn that they knew about in the ancient times that looks like a hexagon, and the cube is in the middle. It's Saturn worship. Now, the moon turned blood red, so we're just talking about Capricorn. Directly across from Capricorn, its opposing sign, so we're making a pattern now, is Cancer, whose ruling planet is the moon. So that's why they mentioned the moon. The first time figs are good to eat are in June or Cancer. The second time they're good to eat is basically Libra. Revelation 7:4. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. So for people who are religious, or if you want to show this to people who are religious, you have to explain to them that the 144,000 is not the total amount of people. See, apparently God is infinite, and he built a heaven with a capacity. Jehovah's Witnesses believe this. They believe it's 12,000 people from the 12 tribes. This is not true. 144,000 people don't get to see God. However, 144,000 get to see God. And I'm going to explain that to you now. There are 7 chakras. The root has 4 petals, the sacral has 6, the solar plexus has 10. The heart has 12, and the throat has 16, which equals 48. The third eye chakra is represented by 96 and only has 2 petals because it's 2 times as powerful as the lower chakras. 48 times 2 is 96. The crown chakra is 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. When you add the lower 6, you get 96 plus 48 equals 144. Times that by 1,000, you get your 144,000. So what they're saying is when you've activated all your chakras, that is when you get to see God. And that's really what it is. Revelation 9:3. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given powers like that of scorpions of the earth. Well, let's talk about this for a second. The locust came down on Earth and were given powers like Scorpion. So we know that's Scorpio they're talking about because the Scorpion is Scorpio. But what is a locust? Well, the locust has a dual implication throughout the Bible. For example, the locust in Leviticus 11 is a food because they explain that you can eat insects with jointed legs, such as katydids, grasshoppers, locusts. They tell you that. So it's a food. So it's a source of nourishment. So it's a good thing. But what is too many locusts? Well, that's a plague. That's a betrayal. It's supposed to be food. It's supposed to be good. But then it betrays you. And the betrayer is Scorpio. So that's basically that. The locusts looked like horses. This is Revelation 9:7. Prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. The hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had tails with stingers like scorpions. So the horses are Sagittarius. On the head they wore something like crowns of gold. Well, that's the sun in Sagittarius, the golden sun. And their faces resembled human faces. Who are the human faces? Well, the human faces are Aquarius, Gemini, and Virgo. Now, the hair was like women's hair, that's Virgo, and their teeth were like lion's teeth, that's Leo. Now, Virgo and Leo are connecting signs. They had tails with stingers like scorpions. Scorpio is the scorpion. Scorpio and Sagittarius from the horses, those are connecting signs. So there's a ton of patterns here, too. Aquarius, the man, and the lion's teeth, lion Leo, those are opposing signs. So there's just tons of passages that just make patterns. It's not that they're just individually mentioning these signs. It's not that they're just talking about, for example, a fish and then a crab, or a horse and then a beetle. It's not like they're doing that. These have distinct patterns astrologically, connecting signs, opposing signs, or they make patterns with mutable, cardinal, or fixed signs. There's a lot of patterns to be recognized. Revelation 12, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon, with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Well, here's another passage that people think are going to happen. Here's another passage that people think are going to happen, that there's going to be a giant dragon in the sky and a pregnant woman, and the dragon's going to eat her. That's what they think is going to happen. They take this stuff literally. A woman clothed with the sun is the sun clothed in Virgo. It's just another metaphor for the sun being in Virgo. If the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So this makes sense because there's a 24-hour day clock. There's 12 zodiac signs. So the sun every day gets to spend 2 hours a day in each sign. It's just science. It's just math, actually. Now, if the sun is in Virgo, that's between 4 and 6 p.m. So if that's the case, the sun is still out. So if the sun is out, the moon is metaphorically at her feet. Now we know the moon is actually in the air, and sometimes you can see the shadow of it, but it's a metaphor. Whereas if the moon was in the air, in the sky, the sun is at her feet. Now another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The constellation Draco is the dragon. Its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the signs or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. What resonates with you more? The literal version of this or the astrological? It's not as if I haven't already built an astrological pattern through this book, let alone this one. Revelation 13:2. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. So there's a constellation called Camelopardalis, which is a combination of 2 words, camelos, which means camel, and pardalis, which means leopard. In fact, the giraffe early on was called Camelopardalis. It was called the camel leopard. I mean, that's what they saw when they saw it. But it had feet like those of a bear. That's Ursa Major. That's a large chunk of it is in Cancer. Now, Camelopardalis is in Gemini. So Camelopardalis is in Gemini. Ursa Major, the bear, is in Cancer. And the lion is Leo. These are 3 signs in a row. These are 3 signs in a row. You have Gemini, you have Cancer, and you have Leo. So it's just making an arc at the top of the zodiac wheel. That's what it's doing. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. Well, the lamb is Aries, and the dragon, large part of it is in Aries too. So this one's just talking about Aries, basically. Now, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. So when we are talking about this, we're talking about myrrh and frankincense and myrrh, right? Those are olive plants. I don't know if you know that, but the olives take place in Libra, right? Wine and olive oil, that's also Libra. Fine flour and wheat, that's Virgo. Virgo and Libra are connecting signs. Cattle and sheep, that's Taurus and Aries. Those are connecting signs. Horsages and carriages or chariots, for example. The horse is Sagittarius, and the carriage or the chariot is a constellation called Auriga, which is in Gemini. Gemini and Sagittarius are opposing signs. Now, the cattle and the sheep, Aries, Taurus, and carriage is Gemini. Those are 3 signs in a row. Also, the sheep, Aries, and the wine and the olive oil and the myrrh and the frankincense, which are Libra, those are opposing signs. And the human beings are simply Aquarius, Gemini, and Virgo. So that is the book of Revelation. That is how you understand it. Now, which one just makes more sense to you? Dogma aside and fear of hell, because we're going to get into that now. What makes more sense? Does anything that I just said sit with you? Did I show a distinct pattern? Did I make connections? Did I show patterns in the sky? So you've got to start thinking about this for people who haven't woken up. So what is hell? Hell is the flaming inferno. This is where souls go to die. This is where souls are dead, but basically this is where they burn in a lake of fire for all eternity. But here's my question to you. How do we detect pain? How do we detect sensation to begin with, or pain? Well, it's very simple. It's through your nervous system. The brain, the spinal cord, the nerve endings, the neurons. So let me ask you this question. When you give up your ghost and you become a spirit and you leave your shell, you leave your body, and you go into another realm, let me ask you a question. Without your nervous system, your brain, your spinal cord, all that stuff, to process pain, how will you feel pain? You can't. In fact, there's a condition on Earth called CIPA, CIPA, where it's chronic insensitivity to pain, where people literally can't feel pain. Now, they have to be very careful that they don't break their bones and they don't burn themselves in extreme temperatures and frostbite and all that kind of stuff, because they don't feel it. But now, are they suddenly gonna, if they led a bad life, go to hell and feel pain? How does that work? Well, hell is actually winter on Earth. Let's make this case. The idea of a fiery pit where you burn for all eternity is ridiculous when you think about it logically. Hell is actually winter on Earth. Why? It's cold. The vegetation and beautiful flowers and plants are dead. The trees shed their leaves and bear no fruit. It's freezing cold out. People tend to get sick more often. Dangerous animals, if they're not hibernating, are starving and scrounging for food. It's dangerous for humans. Now, here's the thing. The Italian word for winter is inverno. You flip a letter, inferno, and pervert its meaning, which is what they always do. They always flip a letter, or they always slightly change something. For example, the swastika. The swastika isn't evil. The swastika, in its original meaning, is what happens when you take the Big Dipper on the solstices and the equinox. You take a picture of it, and you rotate it around Polaris, the North Star. That's what happens with the swastika. That's where it comes from. What do? They flipped the mirror image and they perverted it. That's what they do. So as you could see, This picture is Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. Satan is in the bottom level of hell, and look at it. It's frozen. He's frozen up to his waist because his wings are flapping so hard, everything is frozen. It's a desolate waste. Dante knew hell was winter. This is part of the reason they were so pissed at him for writing this. Now, the Bible even says it. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Well, here's a question. When do you chatter your teeth? In the cold or in the heat? Okay, so that's Revelation hell so far. Lucifer and Satan. Satan does not exist. He's not a red devil with a tail and a pitchfork. In fact, the earliest paintings of him in the 900s, he was actually blue. Hence where we get the Duke Blue Devils from. The Hebrew word for Satan is Hashatan, which literally translates to adversary. In proper context, two competing sports teams are Satans to one another. That's all they are. They're two adversaries. The Christians will change it to the accuser. But like I said, the Christians will call him the accuser. But he's not real. Lucifer, he is known as the light bringer. In Genesis 1:3, God says, let there be light. How can there be light without the light bearer, without the light bringer? See, Lucifer is immediately mentioned in the Bible, if not by name, but by action and purpose. Lucifer is also known as the morning star. The morning star is known as the planet Venus. The reasoning is that if you go out and look at the sky just before sunrise in the east, you will see a bright light directly above it. That's Venus. It announces the arrival of God's only begotten Son, the light of the world. Lucifer is also known to have a pentagram. Well, here's the thing about pentagrams. Basically, the upright pentagram represented winter in the Middle Ages, while the inverted pentagram, or points down, pentagram the upright pentagram represented summer. And the representation of winter was the inverted point down. The other thing about the pentagram too, you shouldn't fear it, is because it was actually an early Christian symbol, because there were 5 points on it. It represented the 5 points of infliction on Jesus. You have the feet, you have the 2 arms, you have the crown of thorns, and you have the spear of destiny on the side. But Lucifer is known to have a pentagram. That's his symbol. Continuing with Lucifer as Venus, if you follow Earth and Venus's orbit around the sun in a year's time, they almost connect at 5 points. You connect that, you get the pentagram. There you go. This is a drawing that somebody took. Now, what about Baphomet? Well, look at this picture of Baphomet on the right. Notice Eliphas Levi's name is at the bottom. He's the first person to invert the pentagram point down. But if you look at it, it's a mixture of a couple things. See, the goat's head, the goat is Capricorn, and the man body is Aquarius. These are connecting signs. The ancients knew, the other thing too is that Baphomet has breasts. So you're looking at this picture and you see the 2 fingers up like that. That's an ancient, the way he has it right now, Baphomet, that's an ancient Egyptian Kemetic peace sign. See, the fingers separate. The John Lennon peace sign, that's a V for victory. That's a British war sign. That's Churchill's war sign, because the fingers are separate. This is the original peace sign. So when you see Baphomet or Lucifer, or you see Buddha or Jesus or any of these caricatures doing this, they're telling you they're patient, and they're telling you that they're peaceful too. 2 fingers up, 2 fingers down, as above, so below. You see the pentagram on his head. We just went over the pentagram. You'll see the caduceus in the middle of his stomach. The caduceus, where does that come from? Well, it goes from the rod of Asclepius. It also goes all the way back to the Kundalini. There's mention of it in the Bible too. Moses, in Exodus, his people are getting angry with him. And he goes, he's like walking away, and they're like chasing him basically, and snakes come out of the ground and they bite everybody, and a lot of people die. Some people don't, and they beg him to talk to God. What does God say? He says, take a serpent and wrap it around a staff, and all those who will look at it will live. Well, that's the caduceus. That's the rod of Asclepius. That's the Kundalini. That's what they're trying to tell you. It's so deeply encoded. So like I said, we're going to do Revelation, Hell, Lucifer, Satan, and Baphomet. There is nothing to fear, people. There is nothing to fear. This is all just deeply encoded. It just needs unraveling. You have nothing to fear. You are not going to burn in a lake for eternity. Or if you start to understand the kind of stuff I'm talking about, you're not going to be punished for questioning it. So I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you guys have a good day.